Good morning. My name is Tim Anderson. A year ago, I would have never imagined that I would be speaking here in front of this group or speaking really to anyone. When the Democrats took control of the General Assembly in November, I had a unique opportunity to start talking about some of the laws and start alerting the citizens of Virginia of what the Democrats were up to and explaining a House bill which is impossible to read even as a lawyer and breaking it down into some simple talking points. Since that time, my Facebook presence has grown to about 1.5 million viewers per month. And it's a big voice. And I've used that voice to go after corruption. And Louise Lucas has been one of those individuals for whom I have challenged. In fact, I like to say that I think I found the largest, biggest guy in the room and I punched him in the mouth. So yeah, I'm in a street fight in Portsmouth with Louise Lucas. She has sued me for $20 million. I'm in a lawsuit with Speaker Fillercorn up here in Virginia, in Richmond, where on Friday it will be exposed that Speaker Fillercorn deliberately and willfully lied to a citizen in a FOIA request, and we are anxious to see what the judge is going to do. We are fighting with the Democrats on levels that they're not used to, and they are unbalanced, and as they are unbalanced, they are making mistakes. And so we are bringing the fights to them. Why I'm here today, though, is not to talk about me, but to talk about Amendment 1. Amendment 1 is on your ballot this year. We are looking at and thinking about the presidential elections. We are thinking about the Senate. We are thinking about the Congress. And there might even be a couple of local races on your ballot that you are concerned about. But let me tell you that Amendment 1 is as important to Virginia as any amendment that you will have seen in your lifetime. Amendment 1 is an amendment that deals with how we draw lines of how we are grouped together as voters. What you might have heard is gerrymandering in the past. What the Republicans under Speaker Cox, who I'm so glad to see here today, decided to do in 2019 when the Republicans were in power is they came up with an idea that we would have a redistricting commission that would be completely nonpartisan. How am I grouped with the other people in my community? Will it be by people that hold power, or will it be by a neutral third party group of people from both sides and some individual citizens? Under Speaker Cox's leadership, they came up with this proposal that said we want a neutral party to do this. We want nonpartisan politics to decide how we will be voted into office. I am trying to recall Senator Lucas. And if you look at her 18th senatorial district, it is literally like you would take a piece of spaghetti and throw it against the wall. It wiggles in and out of Portsmouth. It gets parts of Chesapeake. It goes through Southampton County, and some of Southampton County's not in it. It is unbelievable what they've done. They've taken black voters in one area and white voters in other areas, and they've messed them all up, and they're doing it for political purposes. So the Democrats sued in 2018 and said that there's gerrymandering. They sued in federal court in Richmond. The Richmond judge agreed that there was some problems with that. So what they did is they sent the case to a professor at the University of California at Irving and said, hey, you out there in California, go ahead and draw the maps in Virginia. And now we have what we have, which are these spaghetti lines through districts. Zip codes don't even vote in the same zones anymore. Leon Benjamin's seat is unbelievable, okay? Unbelievable. He somehow is in Chesapeake and in Richmond for a Congress seat. All right, this is what they've done. This is what this professor in California has done. He has taken a way to make Democrat voters have power. In 2019, when we lost the Senate and we lost the House, I will tell you that even the Washington Post admitted that more Republicans voted than Democrats statewide. But how did they pick up so many more seats? How did we lose the supermajority? How did that happen? It's because of how they gerrymandered us out and put us in zones that are unwinnable. A guy named Barry Knight in my town of Virginia Beach is a legend in the House of Delegates, and he would raise money and he would give it to more weaker Republicans that needed it. He lost that race the night of the election, and then it wasn't until the next morning that he barely won against a no-name Democrat because they gerrymandered his they call us racist. They gerrymandered him into a district where it completely brought in people that weren't even in the city of Virginia Beach. It's unbelievable. So what Amendment 1 says is that it's no longer going to be that way. We're not going to let professors in Irving tell us how Virginia is going to be drawn. We're not going to have the Democrats and the governor decide how lines are being drawn. It's going to be neutral, and that works well no matter who is in power. Whether Republicans are in power, whether Democrats are in power, whether we have a Republican governor or a Democrat governor, we have the ability to be neutral. And I should be able to vote with the same people that live in my own zip code. I should be able to vote for Leon because Leon is in the community, not spread across a state, so that they can maximize political lines for a political party, and that is where we are. Amendment 1 is a constitutional amendment. It passed overwhelmingly. The Democrats were thrilled with it when Speaker Cox advanced it. They overwhelmingly were in support of it, and then they won in 2020, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. You mean we can draw the lines now? And so they barely passed it. For the constitutional amendment to happen, it has to pass 2 years in a row by the General Assembly, and then it comes to us for a vote. So it barely passed. It overwhelmingly passed when the Republicans had control, barely passed when the Democrats had control, and now the Democrats are telling their voters to vote no. All right? It is extremely important to Virginia, to the sanctity of how we vote, the sanctity of how we vote with our neighbors, that we vote yes to that constitutional amendment. It's important to be able to understand what I've said and explain that to your neighbors, because people will say, what does this mean? It's written in some weird, crazy code that lawyers write things in. But the simple answer is do you want the parties to draw lines, or do you want it to be neutral and unbiased? And I think everybody, Republican and Democrat alike, would say, I would rather it be neutral and unbiased. And if that passes with a yes, then we have a fair shot in 2021 of winning back the House of Delegates, which is the first step in taking back and changing the laws that have been passed. If you don't like the idea that now nurse practitioners can do abortions, the way you get that is you have to win back the House of Delegates next year. It will be hard to win back the House of Delegates with the lines that we currently have, and the Democrats will make it worse next year when the census comes out. So I implore you, the constitutional amendment to Virginia is as important as Donald Trump is to the nation. We must vote yes to that constitutional amendment. We must encourage everyone else to vote yes to that constitutional amendment. And when that comes back as yes, and that is part of our Constitution, that is the path to take back Virginia in 2021.